I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword.
Our work can be seen on film, Broadway, and at Renaissance festivals around the country.
We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man at Arms, REFORGED.
When I was a kid, my best friend Travis and I used to wake up every day about 30 minutes early before school to play Zelda. Although this sword is not in the original series, I'm really excited for this build. There are two parts of the Deity sword. One will be forged in Damascus and the other in W2.
This is a fairly complex technique, which is in principle the same as making a multi-core Viking sword, but without the central core.
I'll be forging the W2. To ensure that we get a good weld. We just don't want the piece to slide side to side or up and down while we're trying to do the forge weld.
Okay, now to the forge.
Forging together so often, sometimes it feels like we're a double-headed forging monster. Here, Ilya is going to apply some flux to the tip. Works as an oxygen barrier. Any oxygen gets in there, really inhibits your weld, so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. He's going to do the initial weld by hand on the anvil, and we'll go back in, get some more heat, and go to the press. So this is the most crucial stage of the whole sword making process for us, is getting these two welds at the top and the bottom good, so we're not going to take any chances. Now that he's got that probably solidly welded, we're going to double check it by going to the press and doing a little squish on the press. Now that we got the tip welded, he's going to forge the point. This is our second heat on forging the tip. You can see he's just holding the blade at an angle. He returns to the flats just to double check it. Now he's adding a little bit of bevel to it. Still being very careful with each hammer blow to make sure that he doesn't slide those welds apart. So Ilya first used a hammer, set the weld slightly by hand, and then we went to the press like we usually do and finished the weld setting there. Ilya's got the shoulder and the tang area tack welded just to ensure we don't have any slippage. So now we're going to go to the heat and do the last crucial part of the forging. After forging the blade, I'm now going to profile it slightly on the sander just to clean up the shape. I'm going to use an air-powered die grinder to clean up the inside of the Zelda blade. Ilya and I are getting ready to heat treat our Zelda Deity sword. We're initially going to stick it in with the forge on. We're going to turn it off, use the residual heat to heat this up. This is a really high carbon steel blade, so it's going to be heat treated much lower than what we've shown before. Because it's two very different steels on either side, we just have to be really careful to make sure the heat doesn't pull it from side to side and give us some warpage that at this point would be pretty impossible to fix.
We basically chose to replicate an ancient Viking technique of pattern welding with several cores, except this time we have a missing core at the center, which is very appropriate for the Zen philosophy where everything rests on nothingness. Here, the most important billet, the central billet, is absent. It's nothing. And that's how you get a magic sword. What Matt is doing right now is straightening the sword right up to quench. At this stage, the steel is in the super plastic stage before the crystals decide to form the way they want to. If Matt takes too long doing this, the sword will become glass hard and he will snap the whole thing.
No pressure. After tempering, I take the blade to the grinder and begin my long and steady process of bringing this blade to shape. Here I use a handheld belt sander to clean up the interior of the blade. So I've been grinding on this now for a couple hours. It's been the most complex shape that I've had to grind before. So I've actually spent more time grinding this blade so far than probably any other blade I've ever done. I'm at a 120 grit right now. I'm gonna take it through 400. So I got another hour or so to grind on it, but I'm really pleased with the way it's gone so far. It's just been a test of my patience. After many challenging hours of grinding, I'm finally at the 400 grit stage, almost ready for polish. Normally I'm very consistent with all my angles and how I grind. You can see and hear and all this that I've had to change my angles a lot. Nothing about this was a normal grind. Everything about this was about as complex as it could be. Basically more sculpting than sanding. After all the sanding, I moved to the Scotch-Brite wheel to smooth the surface and prepare it for the etching. After selecting my piece and cutting it on the saw, I lay the blade over the guard and draw on my shoulders and tang to prepare it for milling.
So we're milling on the Zelda guard. It's a fairly large piece of metal, so we've got to use a pretty big cutter. So we started out this project by using a drill bit and drilling a series of holes where we wanted to be able to have our cutter go. So these go all the way through for the tang, and they'll be widened on the opposite side. These go down about halfway and create the shoulder that the blade will sit on to give it some extra strength with the guard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these 4 holes into a slot about halfway down.
Now that we have our slot in our guard blank, it's time to give it that classic Zelda form. After using the vertical mill to rough slot my piece of wood, I use the torch to slowly heat the tang and force it over, burning the slot to perfection. Alright, we got our handle slotted for the Deity sword. In the video game, there's a real simple round handle. I'm going to do a little bit more of an ovate to round at the end, just to give a better grip, and because we have such a beefy tang. Alright, at this point, got all our pieces blanked out. I got the steel guard, got a little piece of wood for the little insert here. Got our wood handle, our pommel, threaded. There it is. Not pretty yet, but it's could be used as a sword right now. Boom. Zelda Deity sword. After polishing the blade, we were in for a not so pleasant surprise. The blade wouldn't quite fit into our vertical tank, so I had to pour the acid out into a homemade horizontal tank and by hand slowly rub the acid on to reveal the pattern. Staying true to the game, I mask off the Damascus side and color the opposite side green. Getting ready to paint our W2 edge. Tried a bunch of different ways to get that good Zelda green. Just really couldn't find any ways, so we're gonna go with the paint. So if you polish your metal before you paint it, it'll stay looking shiny and polished. Like that. We're going to be heat bluing the hilt, but first I have to make sure all my grinding lines are out. I use the Scotch-Brite wheel to make this happen. I went to our local hardware store and had them mix me up a special color green wood stain. Here I apply it to the handle to get the desired color. Cool thing about stain over paint when you're doing the wood is you'll still be able to see all the wood grain. If you painted over it, it would just be all solid color and not look very natural. Like me, I think fans are gonna be really pleased with this. We did the 2-bar construction, which just goes right along with the game and the theory behind it. Each blade would have been more than worthy of making a blade on its own, but combined, I believe this is pretty close to the ultimate sword blade.
Click here to subscribe, or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next. Special thanks to our friends at Zombie Go Boom.